My husband doesn't want my affair baby. Instead of seeing it as a bonus, he dumps me. Stay till the end and find out why. This episode is emotionally disturbing to cheaters.
I was married to my ex-wife for just shy of 18 years, when we divorced 3 years ago. We have 2 adult sons, who were 16 and 17 at the time. They're both in college now and I couldn't be more proud of them. We had what everyone thought was a very good marriage, right up to the point when it seemed to fall apart overnight. I started noticing a change in her behavior during the pandemic. At first, I thought she was just experiencing depression and anxiety, like many people were back then. Then out of nowhere she became very moody and distant. Not just to me, but towards our sons and her parents too. She was constantly glued to her phone, for what she claimed were work-related issues, and our love life dwindled. I brushed it off due to the circumstances. Then one day she went out for a drive, and didn't return for hours. I was worried and tried calling her multiple times, but the only response she sent back was a text, stating she wouldn't be home for a while, and there was lasagna and salad for me and the boys in the fridge. I sent her a text back asking where she was and what was going on, but she never replied back. She eventually returned home around 11 that night, and I greeted her at the door and demanded she tell me what was going on. She told me she didn't want to talk about it and just wanted to go to bed. I told her she wasn't going anywhere until she told me where she was and who she was with. She refused to answer, and I didn't want to cause a scene with our boys in the house, so I backed off. She went up and took a long bath and went to bed without saying a word to me. After she went upstairs, the boys came down to talk to me as they had been listening to our conversation. They were stunned and asked why mom was mad at everyone, for which I had no idea. I slept on the couch that night and woke around 6 the next morning. I went upstairs hoping to talk to her, but she had already left the house. I called her cell repeatedly, but she didn't answer and eventually must have turned off her phone as the calls started going straight to voicemail. She ended up calling me back a half hour later when I was in the shower. I got out and answered, and again demanded she tell me what was going on. She interrupted me with the words,
There's someone else.
To which my immediate response was, what? She continued saying she had been seeing another man for the past 3 months, and that she was in love with him. To say I was crushed was the understatement of my life. I was wiped out, floored and completely in shock. The timeline she gave lined up almost exactly to when her demeanor started changing. I wish I would have demanded answers back then, stood my ground harder. But to be honest, I didn't think anything of it. Before this, I trusted her with my life. She told me I was too engaged in our sons' lives to even recognize she existed. Yes, it's true. I spent a lot of time with them as they both play multiple sports, but so did she. There are kids for God's sake. Isn't that what good parents do? She apparently didn't feel the same and felt like we, as a whole family, were neglecting her. She told me she needed space to figure things out, and wouldn't be coming home for a few days. Oh yeah, I thought. Space? To figure things out? While getting her salad dish rearranged by some lowlife? Sure. She thinks I'm the biggest fool. Wow. When she actually said this, my mood switched to pure anger, and I demanded she give me answers now. She went silent, then told me she didn't like my tone and hung up. I admit, I was still shocked as she had never acted this way before towards me. It was like a demon had taken over her body, and the wife I knew no longer existed. I tried calling her several times, but she had her phone off and the calls went straight to voicemail. I left her a message and followed it up with a text stating, if she didn't come home this evening, that I would be filing for divorce. She never responded and never came home that night. By this time, I had alerted her parents and sister and they tried reaching her, but she didn't respond to them either. As you can imagine, my sons were broken up about this. Their own mother doing this? It's just unreal to them. They loved and respected their mother and always held her in the highest regard. Both of them had their own unique relationship with her and honestly, she seemed to be a great loving mother. I didn't tell them what she told me, and instead reassured them everything would be okay and we'd all get through this. The following day, I called her office and discovered through one of her coworkers that she had taken the week off. I knew she was likely with her lover, so I decided to give it 48 hours to see how it would play out. If she didn't come back within those hours, I would seek out a lawyer to discuss my options. She didn't come home or call, so on Thursday of that week, I set off to meet with a lawyer my uncle recommended. She was an older lady, but very sharp and experienced at handling divorces. She explained to me that my wife was in the fog of the affair now. She said she knew this with 100% certainty, as she'd seen this countless times over the years, and it's a phase all cheaters go through. She recommended I serve my wife with divorce papers, on the grounds of infidelity and abandonment, even if I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. She said in her experience, this usually snaps the wayward spouse out of the fog, and brings them to their senses. Whatever's left of them. If, and I say if, I didn't know then, I'd know for sure the relationship was finished. I followed her advice, and the following week, my wife was served at her office. She didn't respond for days, and I didn't attempt to contact her. During this time, she wasn't communicating with her family either, and none of us knew where she was. Imagine, not even a hint of any sorts towards her kids. She finally ended up calling me a week later stating she got the paperwork, and also wanted a divorce. Without asking her, she told me she hadn't felt passion in our marriage for years and has been miserable. She said she loved me and our sons, but felt like an outsider in our lives. Her words hurt me even worse than her deception before or anything else I had experienced. It didn't make sense. I saw her as being happy in our marriage. I really thought she was happy, as she always seemed to be, and I'd make sure of that. Until recently. I didn't respond. I think she sensed that couldn't be the only explanation. Then she told me it wasn't any one thing I did, stating I was a perfect husband and father. She said she just felt empty and alone, and now she felt alive again. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I bet she could have gone on and on about all sorts of twisted reasonings. It's just, I don't care for them. I knew there was nothing left worth fighting for, so I just hung up on her. The divorce process was initiated. However, it was slowed due to the court backlog from the pandemic nonsense. During the waiting period, I never interacted with her, and our sons basically cut all contact with her. Initially she was distant, but then tried to make amends with them. But by that time they didn't want anything to do with her. I talked to them and explained I was fine with them having a good relationship with their mother. And in fact I wanted that, but they weren't interested. Months went by, and my lawyer finally got word that our case was scheduled 60 days out. While I was disappointed with the delay, I was glad I had a firm date when everything would be over with. Around this same time, I found out through my father-in-law that my 42-year-old wife was 6 months pregnant. He also informed me that her affair partner was a 31-year-old single guy from her office. At that point, her father had stopped talking to her and forbid her from coming to his house. While I had grown calloused about her by that point, this news hit me out of left field. I felt angry, while at the same time relieved knowing I would soon be rid of her. I relayed this new information to my lawyer and asked if I should notify their employer. She told me not to do this until after the divorce is finalized, as she didn't want to sidetrack the proceedings, or risk me having to pay alimony. She explained that since my wife obviously committed adultery and abandoned her family, I wouldn't be on the hook for alimony or child support. However, if she was unemployed, a sympathetic judge might decide to throw some alimony her way, and we didn't want that to happen. Now remember, all this time I hear nothing from my wife. About 3 weeks out from our hearing, out of the blue, I received multiple calls from her. Call after call, spamming like there's an emergency. There's nothing she could summon me for that's actually an emergency, not to me at least. So I ignored them. She left me frantic messages telling me to call her back, ASAP. I advised my lawyer of this, and she told me not to respond and to let her call as my lawyer, to see what she wants. She spoke to my wife, who told her she wanted to come back home to her family. Seriously? She wants to come back to her family? My wife said she realized now what a terrible mistake she had made, and was very sorry for what she had done. She apparently was still living with her lover at the time, but told my lawyer she didn't want that relationship any longer, as she didn't belong there. My attorney told me I didn't have to respond and recommended I not do so, but I told her I'd like to personally speak with my wife. To tell her face to face and in no uncertain terms. Hell no. She again advised me not to. I told her it would give me great satisfaction to do so after what she put me through. My lawyer still wasn't wild about this but agreed on the condition the call be made from her office, and that it be recorded. The following afternoon, I went over to her office for the call. My lawyer called my wife on speakerphone, and when she answered, she announced the call was being recorded and asked my wife if she agreed to this. My wife said yes, and my lawyer said she was going to leave the room so we could talk. After my lawyer closed the door, my wife wasted no time and immediately started apologizing, telling me,
Oh, baby, I'm so sorry.
She said she woke up one day and had a "what have I done" moment. She told me she wanted to come home right now, saying she wanted her family back and wanted to stop the divorce proceedings. Try to imagine that. She just woke up on a random day, and there it was, her revelation that she actually had a family. And now what? She expects us to feel blessed. Let her come back the same day? I didn't say this obviously, just a rant as I typed this down. I told her it was too late for that, and the damage had been done. When she heard this, she started crying. Started in a squealy low pitch, then fluctuated between low and high pitches, with some moans for dramatic effect. Then her tone of voice stayed somewhat sad, but morphed weirdly into a kind of uplifting, insecure tone. If that makes sense, it was when she said the following. She told me she was having a son, and that she wanted him to be raised in a good home, with a loving family. She then went on to tell me that I was the best father in the world, and she wanted me to be her son's father. That her son needs a dad like me. Her statements caught me off guard, so I went silent for a few moments. Then told her congratulations, and wished her and her unborn child well. She asked me again, talking about our family being whole, and that we're going to one extra, as a bonus. Looking back, I think it was the right choice to have this conversation on the phone instead of face to face, as I became intensely annoyed. I then told her I had no interest in doing that. That I had no interest in being a father to her unborn child. She kept crying and going on about how she wanted her family back, and that this whole thing was a result of a mental breakdown she had due to the pandemic. I held my ground and told her our marriage was over, our family is over. And my last words to her were telling her, I wish the boys would find peace in her barrage of never-ending insults to their memory of her as their mother. I then had to end the call, as she wasn't accepting what I was saying and I sensed I was losing grip on my patience. After that, I called her parents and told them what just happened, and they couldn't believe it. Apparently the previous night, she had called her sister and told her she had a change of heart about everything, and was very remorseful. In the days that followed, she continued by sending me texts asking me to reconsider. Don't worry, I stood my ground, and the divorce eventually went through. Think about it. Even if I was dumb enough to give her a chance, I know my life would be worse than actual deletion. While also cursing the life of my sons, only for her to get another whim of an idea or revelation, while I'm raising another man's offspring. I just wish I had seen it when I met her, that she was only worth a one-night stand, with double protection. So back to the divorce. We split things and I actually ended up keeping a little more than my share of the assets, which was a nice surprise. There was no child support or alimony due to the situation, and I bought out her half of the house. She had her son a few months later, and split up with her lover a short time after that. Just after she split with him, my sons made up with her. It started with one of them mentioning to me about talking to mom and wanting answers. When they approached me about this, I encouraged them to go visit her, as I wanted them to have a good relationship with their mom. See how she's doing, for themselves. I don't say that with ill intent. It's their actual mother. She's gone bad, but they still have souls and a good future. I told them not to feel bad if they also wanted to meet their little brother. That it's just an innocent party in this craziness. 2 years have passed since and I've been very happy living the life of a single father. At this point, I have no interest in dating seriously, even though I've had plenty opportunities. I like my life just like it is and want to enjoy myself for a while longer. Women come and go, but as I'm more experienced now, I know my worth. Besides, at my age, ladies seem to be the hunters now. And I don't mind the actual bonus of being the betrayed spouse, as it seems mature women see me radiating loyalty. At first I thought it would be a heavy burden on each new date, to tell them about my ex and her cheating. But it's the opposite. It didn't go unnoticed, that my ex-wife has apparently mistaken this as an opportunity for us getting back together. Right after she split from her lover, she sent me a text letting me know, stating that although they had just broken up, they hadn't been together for a couple of months. I felt like texting her back stating formally that I didn't give a crap, but instead decided not to respond. The next time I saw her was at our oldest son's graduation. I threw him a nice party at the house and had both families and our friends there. My ex-wife came with her son. I warmly greeted them when they arrived, but tried avoiding contact with her for the rest of the day. As the crowd started thinning out, I noticed she was still hanging back. I really wasn't interested in having a conversation, so I asked her sister to encourage her to leave with them as a group. She did that and my ex-wife got up to leave with them, but asked to have a moment with me before leaving. There were people all around at the time and she said it in a way that I couldn't ignore. So I walked over to her, instructed to go over to where I have my fire pit, and we had a brief discussion there. She thanked me for hosting a great party for our son, and said she again wanted to tell me how sorry she was for what she had done, and that she still misses me every day, and loves me with all her heart. I told her that her apology was appreciated but not necessary, as I was past all that now, and I'm very happy with my new life. She asked if I was seeing anyone, and I said I wasn't. I told her my sole focus in life now was taking care of my sons and myself, and I had no interest in dating seriously right now. She looked at me, and told me she was miserable. She then said she needed me, and her son needed me, and she wanted to come back home. She said she would do anything I wanted, and promised to make me the happiest man in the world if I'd give her a chance to. She then started crying and buried her face in her hands. She said her son was a great kid, and that I would grow to love him if I spent time with him. After digesting all that for a minute, I told her I wished her and her son all the best, but I would not be part of their lives in any meaningful way. I told her I was happy with my new life now and was looking forward to my future, whatever that might be. But I'm sure that those plans did not include her. She told me she felt terrible that her son was going to grow up without a good father, and needed a father figure in his life, like I am to our sons. It's like she expected me to feel bad for her decision, or use it as an emotional bargaining tool. I just don't care, I thought. How is that my problem? But I didn't say that, though my face told her enough I would imagine. She pointed out that we would be an amazing family, of all boys, with a strong father. She kept subtly trying to force this bonus child nonsense on me, and it feels disgusting. I told her, her son has strong men in his life as I know her father, brother-in-law and my sons would be there to guide him as he grows up. After that I stood up and gave her a hug, a real hug, and walked her back to the party. That was a tough conversation, but I felt so relieved after having it. It was necessary. While she had given me many great years, the year after she left was the worst year of my life. And I'll never put myself through that again.
Royal A.I.
It's heartbreaking to see how things unraveled for you, OP. The red flags were there: emotional distance, secrecy, and that constant attachment to her phone. But when you love someone, it's hard to confront those signs. It's almost like you don't want to believe what your gut is telling you. Most people, especially those who cheat, can't resist attention and validation, but it's such a betrayal to the trust that should have been sacred in a marriage.
It's even harder to accept that younger men often aren't interested in older married women for who they are, but rather for the thrill or ease of the situation. It's just easy prey for some. They see them as easy targets, and this woman fell into that trap. It's not just her own life she upended, but her family's too. She has no shame, only when it benefits her. The damage done here is so much deeper than just the affair itself. I wished you would have told us more, OP, but still, thank you.
You and your kids don't deserve this, OP. A woman who cheats shows zero respect, not just for her partner, but for their entire family. To think she could ask him to step up and raise a child that isn't his is beyond disrespectful. It's cruel. It's like she expects him to carry the consequences of her actions, while she gets to rewrite the narrative. There's just no coming back from something that shatters everything good in a family. She's evil.
It's amazing how strong OP has been through everything. Choosing indifference and focusing on living his best life is so inspiring. It's easy to get caught up in anger or heartbreak, but OP didn't let that define him. Instead, he's found happiness in his own way, and that's such a powerful message. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you move forward. And honestly, what better revenge than thriving?
Why is no one acknowledging the strength it took for her to walk away from a marriage that clearly wasn't fulfilling her? She was lonely, neglected, and treated like she didn't matter, and now everyone wants to act shocked that she found someone who actually paid attention to her. Why is this bonus kid mentioned like a thing that's bad? Seemingly everyone is so quick to dismiss that. A child is a blessing, not a burden, and if this man is really as strong and noble as he claims to be, why not step up and prove it? Raising a child that isn't biologically his would show real strength and character. So where's all that so-called loyalty he radiates? It's easy to sit back and play the victim, but maybe it's time for him to take responsibility for the part he played in her unhappiness. People love to vilify women in these situations, but she's the one who had the courage to seek happiness while he just wallows in self-pity. Honestly, maybe the family would have been better off if he'd been less focused on his ego and more on making her feel valued. Cheating is bad, but OP's side sounds fishy to me. I would love to know about the wife and what really went on. The kids going back proves that she is a great mother.
Oh, wow. Your reasoning is nothing short of spectacular. If only there were medals for delusion. Let me spell it out for you. Defending a cheater by framing her betrayal as finding attention is peak absurdity. She wasn't seeking emotional connection. She was chasing a cheap thrill at the expense of her family. That's not empowerment. It's selfishness dressed up in victimhood, and you bought it hook, line, and sinker. The bonus kid argument is laughable at best and disgusting at worst. A strong man doesn't become someone's doormat just to wear a badge of virtue or to win an argument on Reddit. Suggesting that raising the product of an affair is some test of his character reeks of the same logic that says, "It's not my circus, but I'll clean up the elephant crap." Nah, but thanks. Try harder with your so-called reasoning. If anyone needs to step up, it's the cheater who created this mess, not the man who already did everything right. And the kids going back to her. Oh, honey, that's not a sign of her being a great mother. That's kids doing what kids do, clinging to the hope that the parent who shattered their world can somehow make it better. It doesn't undo her betrayal. It doesn't erase the nights those boys sat there, wondering why their mum chose a fling over them. If anything, it shows the kids have more grace and maturity than she ever did. I honestly think that's the case, because OP shows these virtues. Your call for the wife's side of the story is just rich, we've heard it. She felt neglected, boo-hoo, cry in some bucket. Life gets hard, marriage gets tough, and being a parent means sacrifices. The difference between adults and overgrown toddlers like her is how they deal with those challenges. Real women communicate. They fight for their family, or they leave with dignity if it comes to that. They don't blow everything up and expect applause or pity for their tantrum. And your insinuation that OP is somehow fishy? What a lazy attempt to shift blame. The man got blindsided by a wife who spat on their vows, ghosted their family, and played the victim when caught. He held his head high, did right by his kids, and had the backbone to walk away from her chaos. That's integrity. You should take notes. Let me give you some hard truth. Defending someone like her doesn't make you clever or compassionate. It makes you complicit in excusing toxic, destructive behavior. So keep playing defense for cheaters if it makes you feel morally superior. But remember this. While you're busy twisting reality to make her look like the victim, the rest of us are applauding OP for doing what weak people like her, and evidently you, could never do. Holding his ground and demanding respect.
That brings us to the end of OP's story. Last comment dismantled the toxicity spewed towards OP, dismantling the nonsense piece by piece. While the comments OP received were great, and some even mic drop worthy. What would you advise OP? Let us know down below.
You like the way these stories are brought to you? If so, I got you covered. More like this on my channel. Thank you for staying till the end. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. See you in the next one.